quick that was. I actually forgot how quick that was. Weather's not great, but hey ho. Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Yeah, a bit unusual me putting a video out on a Sunday, but I've just got to go down to work and I thought I'd take the Lambo today. More so just to turn the wheels really. It seems to sit in the garage more than anything else. So of course with work and the kids and what have you, I don't really get a chance to drive it very often, but I just thought I would take this opportunity really into just telling you what it is actually like to own a car like this, because well, what it's like to own a car like this for the normal guy like you and I. It's all right for people with a good few quid, but for the normal man like us, I just thought I'd sort of give you a rundown as to what it is actually like to own something like this, and the things that you're not told or don't think of. So yeah, first of all, you know, as I've done a video on this before really, on this car, but I haven't really, although I'm not a car reviewer, I did sort of state that I'm going to be doing a little review on the van when we get it, and some of you guys were quite positive about that and thought that yeah, maybe that was a good idea and you'd quite like me to do that, but I'm going to give it a little go today. So the Lamborghini Gallardo, what it's like to own really. So I've owned quite a lot of cars in the past, mostly classic stuff to be honest, stuff that's quite valuable now, and stuff that gains a lot of attention and what have you. Nothing like this to be honest. As far as supercars go, this is sort of, I suppose this is on the lower end of the scale, but for the likes of you and I, this is still a sort of dream car. I mean, it's a car, the Gallardo especially, even compared to the Hurricane, and stuff like that, the 488 Ferrari, this here is what I've always wanted. So this for me is a dream come true. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just get to work, pull over, and I'll sort of show you more around the car. We'll still be having tomorrow's video, don't worry about that. But yeah, I'm going to just pull up down work and we'll have a look around it, and I'll sort of run you over the running costs, what to expect if you do own something like this someday, and things that I didn't expect really. So here she is guys. So first of all, yeah, actually owning one of these things, why wouldn't you want to own one? You know, for me, the actual shape of this thing, the lines on the Gallardo, even compared to the Hurricane, I think is just as a Lamborghini should be. It's a little bit like the Murcielago, same sort of thing, where you got like the sort of chiseled lines, the front here, especially on the LP 560, you got the nice chiseled hexagonal sort of lines, and then on the back, really I think this is how a supercar would be designed by a kid really. That's why I suppose most kids love it, because you know, this is your archetypal supercar shape, I'd say, and along with that Superleggera wing that I've put on there, just absolutely finishes the car. So yeah, why would you not want to own one of these? We'll just have a little look around it then guys, and show you sort of what's on the car and the practicality of it and the bits and bobs. So first of all, we got these split rim wheels here, which are absolutely gorgeous, especially in the black. You've got the 6-pot calipers on the front, the Lamborghini calipers, again on this car in black, absolutely gorgeous. Another thing that I didn't realise, you've got the Pirelli P0s, which Lamborghini recommend on these, but these are a specific Lamborghini tyre. So you can't just go out and buy any P0, you've got to buy the Lamborghini one. And apparently on these, you've got P0, see the little L? Well, that is for Lamborghini. So these P0s are specifically for this car, and they're the ones you have to buy at whatever cost they ask. So I haven't got to buy a set yet. That's the only good thing about keeping the miles down. You don't go through tyres very often. So I haven't looked into how much these tyres are yet. It had a brand new set when I bought it, but I'm suspecting that they're not going to be overly cheap. But then that's just that's like anything on this car. This car has got the sort of, I don't know what they call this, like the sort of vented leather in the middle. Got solid leather on the outside. It's got the orange piping to match, and it's got the black dash with the orange stitching. Really nice interior. Although I suppose with the sort of Audi radio and all that heads up now, or whatever they call that, it's a little bit dated now. You've got the chrome toggles there, which is a sort of specific Lamborghini thing. But yeah, I think it's absolutely lovely. It's nice and minimalistic, do they call it? But yeah, I really like that. You've got the Gallardo plaque down here in the door. So absolutely lovely, really. If we just open up the boot, or the bonnet, or whatever they call it. We open this up. Now, another downside to owning a supercar is that is your boot. Although it's fairly deep, actually, it goes right down to the bottom of the floor. So it is quite deep. You can get a decent, probably a couple of half decent bags in there, but you haven't got loads of space. But I suppose compared to some of the other supercars, it's not too bad, to be honest. In here, we've got the battery charger, which I plug in every night. That's another thing with owning a supercar. You have to keep the battery plugged in, because if you don't, you end up with all sorts of lights on the dash. You've got your 12-volt charger thing in here. In here, and this is one thing to look for if you're ever buying one, you've got a little toolkit in there, and you've got some nice, sensible white leather gloves, which are designed, I think, to work on the car with. So what I was specifically looking for is a toolkit that's unused, set of gloves in a bag that's not open, and that is going to keep your value up at the end of it, I would have thought. Little things like that. This side, you've got your compressor and for your tyres, and some stuff to put in the tyres if you ever get a flat tyre. Behind there is the battery. Obviously, that's where the charger's coming out of. So yeah, all fairly minimalist, but not too bad, really. We have a little look behind the driver's seat. You see there, you've got a nice, fairly decent shelf at the back of the seats, really. I don't know whether you can tell, but that's about 8 inches deep, that is. You can probably get a couple of bags behind there. You've got a little bit of net in there to put all your files and your bits and bobs, whatever you want to do. But yeah, to be honest, I think for the age of the car, bear in mind these come out in what, 2004? I think it's really nice in here. You can still see, say, with the centre, the radio and whatever, you can see the little bits of Audi, but I like that. You know, I've always been an Audi fan, and to me, one of the best things about owning one of these Lamborghinis is it's distinctly a Lamborghini, especially to look at, but it has been built by Audi, so you know it's been built right. Let's just open the most important bit, the boot, with the engine in there. You see the engine. See, this particular model has got the glass top on it, which is a very nice touch. Sorry about the wind noise, guys. They said it was going to be nice weather today. There it is. Not a massive amount to see on there. You've just got the lovely sort of air intake covers there with the Lamborghini on. Once again, as I say, really nice and clean and tidy in here. And got the Supercar spoiler in there. So this Supercar spoiler, let me just run you through this. I bought this, managed to get it off a company in, let me just think, Belgium, I think they are. So basically this car as standard had a little pop-up spoiler that sort of sits flush with the back of the car, and it pops up at what, 50 mile an hour, something like that. But I've took that off. But what I've done in here, you've got the motor, and it goes around here, and it's sort of cable operated, and that's what lifts the motors, the spoiler up and down. But I've kept all that in, and just So basically it doesn't throw up any lights on the dash. So if I wanted to just swap it back over, it wouldn't be too bad a job, probably an hour's work. And then I've just sat so inside here you've got the mechanism that still runs in and out of this spoiler. So just tricked the car into thinking it's still on there. But I've just fitted this because I think every Gallardo should have this spoiler on it. When I actually looked at buying one of these spoilers, first thing I did was look at genuine. They're about £8 but you can't get them anyway. And I thought, no, that ain't happening. Then obviously you look at America at the renowned sort of quality makes, and they're probably up about £4.5 for a decent one. But I found this company in Belgium, and if you have a look at the quality of that weave, it's absolutely fantastic. It's faultless. And this cost me, delivered to me, was £1,100. So can't praise them enough. I'm going to actually find out the number. I think they're called ESPC or something like that. I'm going to have to confirm that in one of my next videos. But any carbon bits you need, they do a lot of Jaguar and Aston Martin bits and what have you, but fantastic. They actually do the sides, you know, the side skirts that go at the bottom here. It's like a lip that sticks out. They do that as well. And they also do that black lip spoiler there. They do that in carbon, but I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to put the side skirts, so I'm going to leave this as it is. I just think it looks better with the spoiler. On the back we got 4-pot brakes. God knows what size they are, 350mm or something ridiculous. Another benefit of not using the car very often, you're not going to go through distant pads very often, but they're going to be extortionate. There are sort of things that you, even if you manage to get the money to buy one of these and you go and buy one, you don't, until you've actually owned a supercar. It doesn't really matter what you've owned in the past. Owning something like this is completely different, to be honest with you. What have I experienced in the first year and a half of owning this? So in the first year, we've bought it, and what I didn't really think about was, if we go firstly on, say, the servicing, right? I mean, something like a supercar, we all know this has got the 5.2 V10 aluminium block engine. Fantastic engine. It's the engine that they use in the R8 Audis. We all sort of know that, any of us that know about cars. Extremely reliable engine. I would say out of even all the modern supercars, I would say this engine is still probably one of the most reliable. If you go on channels like Sheepy Race and channels like that, they seem to specialise in turbocharging these things, and they're getting 1800 horsepower out of a stock motor now. And when I say stock motor, I mean, you know, an unbuilt engine. So it just goes to show how bulletproof this engine actually is. And we all know, really, although it's a, you know, a big engine, it's in a supercar, really it's the same sort of design, I would say, as anything fully aluminium blocked, you know, like the M5 V8s and all the rest of it, the same sort of thing, really. So we all know that this engine would probably go on for a couple of 100,000 miles, but there's this sort of stigma with supercars that they have to be low miles, and I think that's all really stems from the old supercars, like the Murcielagos and, you know, the Countashes. You know, all the old supercars really were quite unreliable. But that has sort of carried on with supercars, so people tend to like them really low miles, which is fine. And when I was looking for one, I particularly wanted as low miles as I could for the money, as well as getting the condition. The problem is with that is to keep the value up. If you've bought one of these, it's okay if you've got plenty of money and you've bought one just to trash around or whatever, but if you've bought one as a bit of an investment, then you need to keep those miles down. The problem is with that, for an investment, you need to keep the service history up, and it needs to be a main dealer service history. So this car is a one-owner car before me. It's got full Lamborghini history, which is great when you're looking for one and you manage to find it, but then you've got to keep that up. And what does that mean? Well, that means keeping the miles down, but yet still servicing it with Lamborghini. You don't really think about it, and I didn't, but the less miles you do in it a year, in effect, the more it's costing you per mile. So you've got two choices. You can either go out and use the car and run the risk of it devaluing it when you come to sell it, but as an investment, that's not a good idea. Or you can keep the miles down, but you still got the same running costs apart from the fuel, which ain't great, to be honest. So As far as running costs go, for me last year, I did about 380 miles in this. You've got the service bill from Lamborghini. Last year was a sort of minor service. And to be honest, being a main dealer like Lamborghini, you would expect it to be thousands, but it wasn't actually that bad. So what they did, they come and pick the car up, very professional, 2 guys in suits, you know, the works. They pick the car up, they take it away to Lamborghini, they do the first minor service, so it's oil change and filters, etc. They MOT the car, and then they deliver it back to me, and that costs about £1,500. So that's your minor one. Then you've got your insurance, well, you've got your fuel, say. I mean, the thing does, at best, probably does about 15 to the gallon. So I've chucked a load of fuel in it. You've got your insurance. The insurance isn't too bad, but I suppose for someone who's 40 plus, it is quite bad. It's like £1,100. But the other thing with a car like this is you need proper supercar insurance. I got hold of a broker who specialises in things like this, and he said, look, for example, you can get it cheaper, but you've got to bear in mind something like this is a 3-stage pearlescent paint. The broker that I'm with, if this gets damaged, if I damage a panel, scratch it, whatever, it goes back to Lamborghini and they paint the car. And he said, put it into perspective. For example, he said, we had a customer who had a Lamborghini Urus. He left the boot open and reversed back into his garage. Not major, it wasn't major damage, but it sort of creased the roof, obviously wrecked the boot. Pearlescent paint, it was one of the earlier ones. He said that car has gone back to Lamborghini, and because of the paint, they couldn't match it. So they have to repaint the whole car, and the bill was just over £60,000. Frightening. He said, so he got the same policy as you. He said, so if anything happens to this car, it can't be matched. This thing is going to be painted completely from Lamborghini, and that is going to be extortionate. So for £1,100 a year, it's worth its weight in gold. Then you've got your tax. Road tax is going to be quite expensive, isn't it? I think it's about, £500-600 a year. So yeah, that's the same with anything with the size engine that this thing's got. So last year, guys, I suppose this car, I worked it out. I did 380 miles in it in the first year. Obviously, paranoid about putting miles on it. I thought I'll give it a year, keep the miles right down, use it whenever, just to turn the wheels, really, because obviously it's not good to have the car just sitting there. And I worked it out that this car cost me about £15 a mile, which is absolutely ridiculous, really. If I wanted to go from my house to Ilfracombe, obviously where I used to live, and then sort of back, you're talking about a 30-mile round trip. Work it out, guys. That's about 450 quid it's cost me to go down there and back. But it's one of those, you know, so you've got to really work out whether you want to actually use this car or you don't want to use it. Still going to have the massive cost, but potentially, because of the low miles, you could get it back in the value of the car eventually. So, as I say, for me, being a mere mortal, like most of yourselves, I expect, I bought this car for an investment. My theory is with supercars, as I say, I've always been into the Gallardo ever since it came out, but I do like Ferraris, McLarens, you know, the usual, like everyone does. But I've kept my eye on the sort of Lamborghini market in the past. And what normally happens, they stick at a sort of a low price, which I suppose these have been at. These have started to climb a little bit now, although it's a bit hard to judge the last couple of years because the second-hand car market's gone bananas. But what tends to happen, they're usually at 12, 15 years old and then start climbing. You know, you look at things like the Diablo and things like that, they stuck at about 80 grand for years. Next thing, they're twice that, or 200 grand, something like that. So fingers crossed that happens with these. And also my theory is, being a normally aspirated V10, with most of the stuff now becoming turbocharged and what have you, like the McLarens and that, could make these more, but then again it could make it less. So just keeping my fingers crossed on that I get my running costs back in the value. And then there's the attention, guys. I mean, buying a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a McLaren, if you're the sort of nervous, shy, keep yourself to yourself type of person, this probably ain't the car for you. Or even if you do and you are that type of person, you need to just realise that wherever you go in this, even if you're driving it, if you're stationary, you are going to get quite a lot of attention. It doesn't help the fact that it's bright orange, I know that, but we all know that that's a colour that I absolutely love. So for me, that was my choice. But yeah, driving a Lamborghini, guys, it really does get you a lot of attention. You've got to understand, when I first bought it, I remember the first time I went to a petrol station, because believe it or not, I can be a bit of an anxious person. The first time I went to a petrol station, it was quite a big petrol station, there was quite a lot of people there. I got out the car and it was almost like I was a celebrity. There was everyone filling up their cars was looking at me. There was people saying, oh, that's a nice car, mate. There was about half a dozen people, including the staff, looking out of the shop window at me. And I almost wanted to just curl up and disappear, really. I just couldn't wait to get back in the car and get home. It was a really weird experience, but you do get used to that. And I sort of realise now that this is a car that people don't see every day. You got to bear in mind, even though it's a Gallardo, and it's not an Aventador SVJ or something like that, a lot of people don't really know the difference between all the models. They just think a Lamborghini is a Lamborghini, and a lot of people seem to think that the only time they've ever seen these cars is on posters, and they tend to think that you're driving around in a car is about as valuable as their house. So I do understand that. A lot of owning this car now for me is, when I drive it, it gives people pleasure. You can see on their face it's made their day, you know, and that is one of the biggest things that I like about owning this car now. I really enjoy that. You know, when I did that show down at Lynn Valley Classic the other week in it, I thought that I'd get a bit bored because I went down on my own, and it was a sort of 6 hours I was going to be there, but the time flew by and I was just chatting to people about it. They really enjoy the car, you know, children like it. I drive along and there's been kids that hit the deck shouting Lamborghini, you know, they've never seen one and probably won't again. So yeah, that is a huge side to it that I enjoy now, but you need to understand that when you do get one, if you ever do, it does take some getting used to that, I must admit. Another thing is, I suppose it's a kind of negative, is the actual power of these cars. Now, I've had quick cars before, you know, I had a Sierra Cosworth with 400 odd horsepower and all the rest of it. It's all great. With cars like that, especially the classic stuff, they're not really designed to have that power. So you find the more power you chuck at it, all it does is light the wheels up, and you can sort of have, although you shouldn't really do it on the road, and not saying I ever have done, but you can sort of have a laugh in those things using the power without going ridiculously fast. You can sort of, you know, on a track, mind, you can sort of drift it round and all this. But with a car like this, although this is sort of what, 560 horsepower, it's non-turbo, it's normally aspirated, it's big capacity, it's actually quite a small car, although it gives the presence of being big. So to have that sort of power and initial grunt on the road is almost pointless. The first time I had this and I booted it in second gear, you're just going so fast, so quick, you end up just not booting it at all because you can't use it anywhere. It's all great. A lot of these videos you see on YouTube will be in America where they've got the big open roads or on a track or something like that, which is great. But in the UK, on our little roads, it's bloody pointless, because if I boot it and go up a gear, before you know it, I'm doing over 100. Well, you can't do it anywhere. So yeah, that's the only downside to having a car with this sort of power. It is a serious amount of power, and it just almost is a bit pointless. But hey ho, it's nice to have though, and tell them down the pub that you got 560 horsepower, I suppose. But if I give it a little blap here in a minute, course I won't take it over 40, but the noise, on the positive side, the noise is unreal. Bloody hell, I forgot how quick that was. I actually forgot how quick that was. Unbelievable. Makes your hair stand on end. Yeah, love that. I'll tell you what else is takes some getting used to in this car. And I think the Aventadors are the same. They use the single clutch system. So in the Hurricane, all right, you've got the same basic motor, but you've got the twin plate clutch, very smooth system. I actually went in a very late R8 recently, and although they feel, the gearboxes feel seamless, they feel radically quick, but this old paddle shift gearbox here, the flappy paddle, it's basically a manual gearbox, but with a single clutch, sort of automated clutch really. It gives you an as you can see by that little clip there, it gives you such a kick in the back of the head. Every time you change gear, it's violent, and that takes some getting used to. If you need to be very careful if you're booting it and change gear whilst sort of turning a bit of a corner, because the car loads and unloads quite drastically actually. So you need to really figure out how you drive this car. But yeah, when you take people out in it, it's that gearbox that really makes it feel violent, along with the power. Yeah, absolutely love it. I don't think I would want the other gearbox really. This to me is how it should feel. You know, it's still got that old school sort of feel really, maybe of like a manual gearbox. So yeah, that for me is top. Oh, one other thing, when you're in traffic in this, very rarely do you look in your rear view mirror and see someone that isn't holding a phone taking a photograph of you. And it seems to be the case a lot of the time really. So yeah, a little bit like I said earlier, it takes a little bit getting used to that. All in all guys, it's not a bad experience at all. It's absolutely fantastic. It's one of those things that, as I said, it's a dream for me, and if it all ended tomorrow and I had to sell it, at least I could say I've done it. And for any sort of car enthusiast, that's a special thing really. If you get to ever own a dream car of yours, us car enthusiasts all know what it's like to have a dream car and what cars can mean to us. And to actually get to own your dream car and experience everything that goes with it, the goods and the bads, is a really special thing. And yeah, this car for me is that. So I hope you enjoyed this this one-off guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Really appreciate that. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and the like button, and we will see you tomorrow for some Bareham Engines antics down at work. Thanks ever so much guys, have a lovely Sunday, and we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.